Welcome to BARI Banter, where we talk everything bariatric surgery with the people that know it best, the patients. I'm Shannon, and I'm here with my co-hostess with the mostest,
Lita. So sit back, relax, and remember, sip, sip, sip.
Hey Lita, nice leather jacket.
It's denim, it's not leather.
Oh, okay, sorry. Denim. Yeah, fail.
Oh, you tried to be so cool just then.
No, I can't be cool. Even if I try, I can't be cool.
I am currently wearing a denim jacket, not a leather jacket.
Okay.
So anyway, I thought I'd start this episode off with something a little bit different. I don't know if anybody who watches the podcast, it's just out of frame, but we have a affirmation card that sits above our head, my head, every episode. So I thought I'd pull one out randomly tonight and ask Shan to
elaborate on
it.
Okay.
So the card that I pulled out tonight is turn your I can'ts into oh yes I can.
Oh, yes, I can.
How have you experienced this week?
I reckon, so one of the jobs I rocked up to do this week to do, like, change a fence out was kind of like into a retaining wall and, like, a very difficult situation. And it was one of those jobs that I, like, walked away on the first day and said, I'm so proud of myself because I found a way to do it. Because 10 years ago, there's no way I would have been able to do this certain job. So I don't know. That was kind of like
So you would have gotten to that job and be like, oh, I can't do it. But all of a sudden you're like, hang on a second, I can figure out how to do this and I can do it.
I talked to the client and I'm very much a, believe you can and you will. You know, I'm very much about like confidence is key. Like if you go into any situation believing you can, you're more likely to succeed than if you went in thinking you can't. Yeah. Which is given. Like a mentality and like positive thoughts play a bigger part than you think they do.
100%.
Yeah. So that was like quite interesting. How about you?
Well, I have been going to my CrossFit gym for 2 weeks now. So I've done my 4th class and I told my trainer that I haven't been able to ever do a chin-up. Even with all the bands at F45, with every single band when I weighed over 120 kilos, I couldn't physically do a chin-up. So I went to the class in the morning and I told her, it was just me and her, and so I told her this, and it was a goal of mine that eventually one day I'd love to do a chin-up. Okay. And because it was just the two of us there, she was like, oh, at the end of the class, I know your arms are already going to be dead because I've got you doing burpee box jumps. Burpee box jumps. And like handstands. But she's like, let's just see. And so I reluctantly went to the chin-up bar and I managed to do 6 chin-ups with only 2 bands. So that was a massive, like I didn't think, I said to her, put every single band you got up there. I can't do it.
And you did a box jump.
And I did a box jump. Yep. Yeah. And I did some sort of wall handstand.
Yeah, that was actually quite impressive. Like good coordination when I watched that because yeah, I have no coordination.
So if you watch the video, the idea is that I put my legs on the wall, and then I'm meant to walk my hands closer to the wall so my nose is touching the wall. Okay. Yeah, there's no way. I would fall flat on my face. Yeah. Or on my back.
I was impressed with the box jumps because they're very much you have to believe you can in order to do it because otherwise you stand there and do these weird like frog jumps where you're just like, it's not happening. It's just not going to happen. But just my brain and legs don't work together. But yeah, no, well done. Congratulations.
Thank
Fist
you.
bump.
Oh, fisting. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay.
That's awkward.
Weird.
Okay. Anyway, let's introduce our guests for tonight before you get too carried away.
Another segue nailed.
Yeah. Let's not touch that.
So tonight's guest was bypassed back in July 2018. After losing more than half of her body weight, she has settled into her maintenance phase. Here to talk to us about the highs and the lows of her journey so far, please welcome Isabella, also known as Little Izzy Reith on Instagram. Hi, lovely.
Hey.
Yeah, sorry, that was a really awkward segue.
That's the best one I've ever heard.
That's it. So I'm learning about you tonight because I just scrolled through your Instagram and I was like, wow, you're very cool. Because it's very interesting seeing someone's Instagram and like not having before and after. Weight loss, non-scale victories and stuff like that. I was scrolling through yours and I'm like, wow, okay, like this is like.
I feel like yours is a lot about the fashion and how you're now living your life rather than necessarily memes and necessarily the weight loss.
Yeah, so like I've only ever had the one Instagram account. I didn't create a separate account to document my weight loss surgery journey. By the time I noticed other people did do that, I sort of I was well and truly on my journey. And, you know, weight loss surgery is just sort of one part of my life. And, you know, if I were to create an Instagram account for every part of my life, I'd have quite a few. So I have like shared, you know, the classical like befores and afters, but that's usually to like the story, which disappears anyway, because I don't want weight loss surgery to define me. Certainly for the first little while, it was like, oh my God, this thing happened to me, and look what I've done, and look what I'm achieving. But after a while, it's not your whole life anymore. It's just a part of your life.
Well, I guess our weight, like me speaking on my own experience, my weight defined me for such a long time. And then when I started having, like once I had the weight loss surgery and I was posting Face Off Fridays every Friday and like Transformation Tuesdays, and like for the first 2 years, I was just kind of like, when am I going to just let this go and realize that I'm just now living my life? It's not necessarily all about the weight loss. It's just, yes, I am still losing weight, or I am maintaining weight, or I am hitting my goals, but like I just didn't want to. And like I probably posted before and after maybe like once every couple of months just to be like, hey guys, this is what I was. But like,
no, totally. Because you're like 3 years out.
Almost. Next month.
Next month is your surgiversary. Yeah. So you have 3 month surgiversary. That's it. 3 year. Sorry. That's it. Not 3 months. That's quite like that's a long time. Did you find you feel like now, the third year in, you're just living life? Like you don't feel restriction anymore? Like do you feel like the weight loss surgery is no longer an impacting part of your life?
So I guess like in the context of like soon after, when I used to meet new people, I used to be like, you know, my name's Isabella and I've had the bypass done, you know, like it was such a big thing. Whereas if I meet new people now, it's probably not the first, second, third or fourth thing that I tell them. I probably tell them my whole other life story and then that part. I'm a total oversharer. But like there are still reminders of, you know, in the early days, it was like, oh, look at the scars and look at the weight I'm losing and, you know, checking the scales every minute. But there are still reminders in terms of like how like full I get quickly. You know, if I eat the wrong sorts of foods, you know, the dumping syndrome, the early dumping, the late dumping, the hypos. So there are still some reminders there, but it's not, like I don't wake up and think about it really until maybe I go to eat, you know, and then I might only think about it briefly and then it just goes again.
Do you sit and sometimes think about who you were prior to surgery though? Like do you think about things that you used to do before you had weight loss surgery, you lost all the weight, things that used to be harder that are now easier? Do you still do that?
No, not at all. Not at all. And I should sit down and reflect and probably be more grateful. But it just never crosses my mind. I guess because I wasn't overweight for a very long time. And when I was, it was a really, really big struggle. And now that you've asked, like I'm casting my mind back now and I'm like, yeah, wow. But no, I don't, you know, walk somewhere and go like, oh, I couldn't ever do this before. And I think, and I have a feeling it's because I didn't grow up overweight. I only became overweight and stayed like that for a few years-ish. So it wasn't a big chunk of my life that I spent struggling in that regard.
So like at school and stuff, you weren't overweight?
Oh no, I was 16.
Oh, wow. So what made you, like looking back now, like we're going to make you relate back, what made you put on the weight, do you think?
So I think I started to struggle, and it's funny because I didn't even notice it, because when it comes, like, it just, as it, you know, goes on over a period of time, you don't really go like, you don't wake up one day.
No. You don't wake up 20 kilos heavier.
I woke up one day and I went, crap.
Damn it, I shouldn't eat
no, so I think, so through primary school and early high school, I was, like, I'm not built very thin. Like I'm got a solid European build, but I was always very lean. I was very muscular, very thin. And I think it was in my later teen years, the weight started to creep on. And I think, like growing up, nobody in my family drove. So it was a lot of walking,
Very
I
active.
ate very healthily. It's not to say that I didn't eat a lot. Like, I remember one day I sat down and I ate a whole bag of like the Golden Delicious apples. Like, I was a hungry kid. But I obviously had that metabolism that everybody wants. And yeah, in my teen years, I think that's when I started to put it on. I think my partner at the time worked at a pizza place, and we were eating a lot of pizza, and I wasn't doing a lot of walking. And then maybe that's when I started to start eating my feelings. And then went through a bit of a crappy stage and a bad breakup. And to be completely honest, I did start using drugs. So that's what helped the weight come off, I guess, the first time. So I think I dropped 20 to 30 kilos over the course of a few months. And then I stayed relatively thin-ish again. And the timeline gets a bit blurry, but it's, I guess, maybe from 22, I started, maybe 21 or 22, that's when it started to come on quick. Escalate. And I think I ended up putting on 50 kilos in about a year.
50 kilos in a
so
year?
Around, yeah, I think so. Yeah, it happened quick.
Wow. Okay,
and I got, I think it was around my 22nd birthday, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And so that's like the condition of, it's like the chronic fatigue of the mental health world. It's like we can't quite work out what's going on with you, but you've got a lot going on, so here's this. And essentially it's a trauma-based diagnosis. It's now sort of been recategorized as complex post-traumatic stress disorder. But BPD and CPTSD come with a lot of risk-taking behaviours or behaviours things you do to self-regulate your emotions. And one of those things for me, at one stage in my life was drugs. And then I guess when I stopped doing the drugs, it sort of turned to eating. And so like I think it's like I never think about this anymore, but you brought me back. It got to the point where every night I would just eat whatever, and then at night I would have to have like a whole tub of ice cream and a whole block of chocolate and a whole packet of biscuits, and you're seeing why I put the weight on so quickly.
So it was almost like a routine at the end of the night that you had to be like, I have to eat this and this. Yep.
Yeah, and I just wasn't really. There was a period where I had like a really bad depressive phase, and I spent like a lot of time in bed, like a lot. Physical activity just was not part of my
wasn't a thing.
Routine at all.
Yeah, so they put like these little habits that you developed down to your split personality disorder. Was that right? I didn't. No.
No, so split personality disorder is a term used for dissociative identity disorder.
Okay.
So that's sort of where you have different altered personalities, which is not me.
Yeah, what did you get identified as? Split. It was borderline personality disorder. Is that okay? Right. So that's like you have two kind of identities within yourself to kind of like take yourself away from previous trauma. Is that kind of like how it is? So it's like you have an identity within yourself that you...
No, it has absolutely nothing to do with identity. It's basically you have a lot of issues regulating your emotions. Your emotions are quite often not required for certain things. You cycle through a lot of emotions. You have a lot of time calming yourself down. There's sort of these set depression, anxiety. You can get paranoia. You can dissociate. It's literally the mixed bag of mental health.
So the chronic fatigue. So they're like, what is happening?
Like, were you doing with a lot of?
Yeah.
Was there a lot of anxiety and stuff within your life at that point? Because it kind of sounds like it's a anxiety based.
I think I've always had anxiety. I was diagnosed with that when I was 14, I think, and panic disorder as well.
And it would have been really hard going from the drug use where you lose all the weight to then replacing, so to speak, the drugs with food, which then makes you gain all the weight. Like it would have been completely two different ends of the factor sort of thing. Like that would have been...
but I guess like the thing with trauma is as I'm learning now on this journey, and I'm not going to make a separate Instagram page for this one either, but you dissociate a lot, so you can't quite, you have trouble creating or formulating memories, and half the time you're not here. Like, you're here physically, but you're just off somewhere else in your brain. And so to hear you say, you know, and it is opposite ends of the spectrum, going from drugs to eating and weight loss to weight gain. Like, that didn't even, you know, register in my brain.
Yeah.
But being forced to think about it, and I'm like, oh wow, you're right.
How did you find dealing with those memories? Because, like, I know personally for myself, like, I had a lot of memories. Like, I had early childhood trauma and stuff, and I kind of suppressed that a lot. I always knew it was there, and I never forgot it, but I spent a lot of time kind of like trying to pretend like it didn't happen. How did you find it? Was it something you pushed aside?
Did you bottle it up and not deal with it?
Like, because I know when it came out, it was like a freaking like, because I was at a point in my life where I was just like, I'm going to tell everyone. I told my mum and stuff, and it was just like, it felt good to almost get it on my chest. Was it like that for you? Like, as soon as you kind of put it out there, it kind of helped you grow to a degree?
Well, first, thank you for sharing that with me. I don't know, like, for me, as a child and as a teen, I never really told anyone anything. I don't know why, that's just what I did. And then as I got older, like, it was always there. Not all of it. There are still bits that I'm just starting to remember now, or I have flashbacks about, and I can't quite piece together what's going on. But a lot of the times, like, growing up, I just thought, hey, this is normal. And then it's not until you talk to either a professional, like, you know, counselor, therapist, or even your friend or your partner, and you'll be saying this story, and they're looking at you like, oh.
That's not.
And you're like, what? Like, didn't that happen to you? Was that not funny? So it's a really weird feeling and phenomenon when you're going, wow, actually these things that happened were quite traumatic, and I didn't even think they were. So it's, for me, talking about them, it's neither here nor there. Some days it can be triggering, other days it's not. I don't mind sharing my story and stuff because I like to be able to help others, because there's so many other people out there with trauma that need, you know,
100%.
that community.
Like, opening up about it, because, like, the more I've opened up about it, there's been guys who have come forward and talked to me about it, and I also feel like it hasn't so much affected who I am, but it's affected how I see things. So it's made me hypersensitive to certain situations, is more the side effects.
But it does also sort of play into things that you, like, if you're sitting there trying to make a decision, certain decisions, it'll be swayed by what's happened in your past.
Yeah, to a degree. Like, I think, like, certain areas, like, for me, like, when it comes to, like, children.
Yeah,
and
like, you want to be a father figure, and you don't want to.
Yeah, but also, like, you know, with my father being who he was, like, if I saw, like, a kid without clothes on, I would look away because I didn't want to be perceived as similar to that. You know what I mean? So, like, similar situations like that, it's kind of like, it's funny how it does play a subconscious part in your brain, like, where it's kind of, you do it without almost realizing you're doing
that you're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your, like, deciding factor? When was it, and what was it that made you decide, this is what I need to do, I have to have bariatric surgery?
So it wasn't really ever an option because I couldn't afford it. So, you know, you have these doctors. I started getting all these health problems, like weight-related health problems. And, you know, the doctors are all like, lose weight. Like, you could have gone in with the weirdest condition. They would have said, it's weight-related, lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept being told to lose weight, but I wasn't told how, because you can't say to someone who's, you know, been binge eating for years to just restrict your calorie intake, because it doesn't work that way. Like, it just doesn't work. And I tried, you know, I started going to the gym very frequently, and I loved it. There was a lot I couldn't do in terms of cardio, but I loved weightlifting. I tried shakes, I tried light and easy, I tried so many different things, and, you know, they would work maybe a little bit, you know, but the minute I stopped doing the things, the weight would come back on. And I went to the doctors, and I got put on I asked to be put on the public waiting list for bariatric surgery. And I was put as a category 4, so the not very important category. And yeah, so I'm like, okay, my you know, my mortality clearly isn't very important. And I'm a very short person. I'm only 5 foot. And I weighed at my heaviest, And so at my heaviest, I weighed 124 kilos, I think. So it was putting so much pressure on my system and on my frame. I'm thinking, how can I be a category 4? And then out of curiosity, I was just like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to a few private surgeons and just ask, how much, this is. Actually, no, I think I just started with the one. And when I found out, I think it was, a couple of grand, more than a couple of grand, like sort of just under 10 grand, but with private health. And I've never had private health in my life. I'm like, who can afford that? I thought I'll start a GoFundMe page. And I raised a little bit, but not even 1,000. And I'm like, this is never gonna work. And the thing that started this off is my mum passed away in 2016, and quite suddenly. And I think it was a year after that, I was doing my nightly thing where I'd just be crying, and my grandma walked in because I was with my grandma. And she's German and she processes feelings differently. And she walked in and she sat on my bed and she said, I know why you're crying. I said, why, Alma? Why am I crying? And she said, because you're fat. And she's very blunt.
That's
and
the
I
German
just went,
in her.
I said, no. Yeah. And I said, no, I'm crying because my mum, your daughter, died. And she goes, no. It's because you're fat. And I said, and I'd obviously talked about weight loss surgery with her before. And she said, I'm going to pay for your surgery. And she stood up and she walked out. And so the next morning I had to just double, triple, quadruple check she was being serious. And she said, yep. And, and she organised the money and I organised the insurance. And a year later, I got it done.
Wow.
You're like, so it wasn't what was upsetting me, but kind of works out,
Well, I think because I must have been speaking about it quite often. I think I had this job where I used to sweat a lot when I was overweight. That was one of the things I hated, consistent sweating from the face, and the makeup. And I remember I was sweating and this woman came up to me and she's like, are you okay? And she's quite a thin woman. And I'm like, I sweat because I'm overweight. And I think on my break when I went out for a smoke, she was there too. And she said, I used to sweat from the face a lot too. And I said, oh, what did you do? And she said, I had weight loss surgery. And I'm looking at her like, what do you mean? Like, what? Like, aren't you're just so tiny? And she showed me a photo, and I think that's what actually
clicked and registered
that that's an option. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy. So did you ever, like when you were bigger, were you one of those people who didn't see yourself bigger? Or like, did you know you were bigger and did it affect you?
So it affected me. For some reason, I could hardly walk. I would get that puffed. Like I could not go to the letterbox without just being absolutely exhausted. I remember, and I hate to admit it, but one year after Christmas shopping, I love shopping, my partner had to push me around Chadstone in a wheelchair.
Wow.
Because I couldn't walk. Chadstone's like the biggest shopping mall we've got here, and I couldn't walk it, and it was embarrassing. But I'm like, it is what it is. I can't go shopping any other way. It was definitely like, I don't have a lot of self-confidence anyway, but it definitely impacted that and made it worse. The sweating was really irritating. The health issues that were starting to pile up were irritating. The clothes shopping was irritating because you're pretty much segregated to Kmart, old lady looking stuff. It's gotten better. And City Chic, which is super expensive. And I was really self-conscious about it.
Yeah. Wow. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
like you're like one of the people I look at and I'm like, I can't envision in my head you being there. Like, it's like, I don't get it very often because, like, me being from the weight loss community, I'm so used to it. But I look at you and I'm like, I just can't imagine you being double your size. Like, you would double your size.
You're unrecognizable. I think 2 posts or so ago, you posted a photo of your face before surgery, and I was like, no, that must be a mum or something. It just does not look like you. Like, it's crazy. It's just,
I think to me and everyone who knew me, obviously your face shape changes a bit, but like I've got very distinctive features. So like a lot of people can recognize that was me, but like their brain just can't compute. Like,
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
it is. You've done very, very well.
So, since surgery, you've developed something called postprandial hypoglycemia. Again,
Wow.
I'm asking
so
this
glad
question
you asked that.
because he doesn't know how to pronounce it. What is this? Talk us through what postprandial hypoglycemia is.
Okay, so it's not as bad as it was anymore. But it basically got to the point where every 2 hours after I ate, I would have hypoglycemia, or what I would refer to as I'm having a hypo, and my sugars would crash, my blood sugars would crash below 3, and I would be very unwell.
So is that essentially like I'm so ignorant in this whole topic. Is that almost like being like a diabetic without actually being a diabetic? Or is it the opposite?
Correct, yeah.
No,
yep.
It is. Okay.
Well, I mean, a diabetic generally needs things to lower their blood sugar, but again, if they don't eat, they can have low blood sugar.
Yep.
So I never had the high blood sugar I did when I was overweight. I was pre-diabetic. But yeah, like it was being a non-diabetic but having diabetic lows all the time.
And so, like, because I used to work in pharmacy, and we get people coming in who are like, "I just give me a glucogel or give me a shot of coffee, of Coke or something like that." So is that how you had to? Yeah. That sounded really bad.
Yeah, but
Coca-Cola, not Coke.
Yeah. Why not?
Give that away in
but no, it was
pharmacies?
such a balancing act though, because you need sugar to bring your sugars back up. But what happens if I have too much sugar is I have dumping syndrome, and then I will end up having another hypo anyway. So like, how do you balance that?
How did you balance that?
Yeah.
I think it was like if I would let it go, because it's funny because hypos can often feel like panic attacks as well. So it's like, which one is this? I think the first one I ever had, I actually took a Valium thinking, they're prescribed to me, thinking it was a panic attack. And about, 20 minutes later, half an hour later, I didn't feel any better. And for some reason, I'm like, I had the brainchild. I'm like, I've got my mum's old glucometer laying around here. I'm going to go check. And it was indeed my sugars. So I still keep the glucogel jelly beans on me. I just can't have as many as, say, someone who won't have dumping syndrome. Maybe I'll have like one or two. Wait to feel a little bit better, because there's no way I could eat properly when I feel like that. So I wait till I feel a little bit better, and then I have something a bit more substantial. But yeah, I was like checking my sugars multiple times every day, because it got really bad, and the thinner I got, the worse it got.
And so your levels, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it should be around 5, shouldn't it? Is that the sort of...
For each person it's different, but yeah, like sort of around the 5 mark.
Like 4.6 to 5 is what I've always thought. I could be very wrong. But so for you to be under 3, God, that's like flatlining, so to speak, in your sugar
this
levels.
is diabetic terms, like I'm assuming. Is this like diabetes?
Very loose
Yeah,
diabetes.
because I'm like, man, I'm always sitting at a 10, but I'm like not talking about diabetic.
No. I mean, like if you are a diabetic, your range might be between 6 and 7, and that might be what's normal for you. But for a normal non-diabetic person, it should roughly be around sort of 5. Fasting sugars. So when you eat, your sugars are going to spike. And obviously when I eat, my sugars spike, but then they would crash 2 hours after, and that's why it's called postprandial, meaning after eating.
You've had a very complex process. Like, there's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. How have you found like the mental health side of things, like throughout this process?
It's really weird. After I had surgery, for the longest time, my partner used to make this joke. Oh, it's like when they cut, not that in the bypass they cut your stomach out. It's very much still just pushed to the side. But my partner used to say, it's like when they cut your stomach out, they cut your borderline personality disorder out. And it was this joke because I was in a really good headspace for the first year or so. It's like I knew good things were coming. The way it was coming off, I was feeling better. I was feeling physically better.
You were in the honeymoon period.
Yeah. And I went out and I got a new kind of job, and I was hanging out with friends more, and I was coming more out of my shell again. And then I can't remember at what stage, but it just started to slow down and just sort of be like what I was. It's like I'm the same person as I was prior to surgery in terms of mental health. It's just I look I look different.
I think it becomes like a lot of an identity crisis because like when you're losing the weight, you're very proud of losing that weight. And then when it starts to slow down, you almost like have an identity crisis where you're like, oh no, but I'm not that weight loss person anymore. Like
who am I?
Oh,
you know,
definitely.
Yeah. And like, where do you go next? Because the biggest fear when you get to like that 2-year mark when the weight slows is, regain. Because that's what it's always been.
But
like,
it's really funny that you say that. Like, where do you
regain?
It's funny that you say that. Like, where do you go to next? Because I have had a lot of people recently ask me, like, "Oh, are you still running? Like, you used to be such a good runner. You used to run all the time." And I'm like, "Well, no, I only run once a week now." And they're kind of like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "Oh, but no, I'm doing CrossFit now." It's almost like you have to justify.
Like, you've gone into like, hoping to be a mother.
Yeah.
Like you've gone into that identity.
Yeah.
So it's like you've always got to have something to identify.
You've got to be able to justify your means essentially, which is a sucky thing for for us as humans. Like, why do I need to justify to you what I'm doing?
No, it's because your own personal like growth.
But that's what I mean. Why do I need to justify to anybody else?
No,
I only need to justify it to myself. Yeah.
Yeah, because you always want to be moving forward. You never want to feel like as a human you're stale.
You know what? Somebody said to me the other day, actually, because they were kind of like, oh, and I was like, oh, yeah, the other night I had like the most delicious meatballs. And they turned around and went, oh, are you eating meat again? You were the one athlete that was a vegan that I actually looked up to. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I'll stop eating meat.
If you're the only athlete vegan they're looking up to, they need to like ask some questions because you are the worst.
I'm the worst vegan and the worst athlete.
You did it for like 1 week. Like, I don't think the meat was out of your system and you're back onto meat. Oh, let's not get started on that.
I think for me, it made me realize that my weight didn't actually have anything to do with how I felt. Like, it did. It would have had an impact, but I already felt messed up thanks trauma. Losing weight wasn't going to fix that, and it did in that honeymoon period. But, when that honeymoon period ended, I still am the same person. And I went, oh, damn.
Yeah, that's it. I'm the same person, just half the size.
And it's funny looking back on it, when I was trying to think at what point in my weight loss surgery journey was I happiest, did I feel the most confident? And that's what helped me realize that confidence isn't always linked to weight. But I was actually at my happiest and my most confident and vivacious at size 16, which was really early on in my journey. And I ended up losing so much weight that I got down to a size 4. And I didn't really feel confident then.
Did you identify why it was size 16? Like, why at size 16 did you feel the most confident?
I think it was getting out of the 20s, like the 24, 22, 28, and then 18, and then 16. But maybe I think that's around the time when I got a new job, and I think, I was really enjoying my friendship circle and going out and doing things. And I don't think it was the weight. I think it was just like,
your life
I
was
look better and I
changing
feel
for the
better. But but life's going okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you feel like food's played a big part for you? Like, do you feel like you've changed the way you eat after surgery? Like, do you feel like you're eating differently?
Well, definitely in the early days, I was very stringent. I was a stickler. I was like, no, must follow, these, and look, different surgeons and dietitians give different time frames for the different stages, but like I adhered to mine very, I was, and I remember the first time I got to eat my first egg or my first wheat bix, and I remember calling up my family going, I just ate my first egg. So like, definitely in the beginning, like they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, ugh. But like I was very overly cautious. I did everything by the book. But now, I'm not going to lie, but my mental health's always been yucky. It's when I'm feeling yuckier, the binge tendency is very much still there. It doesn't go away. Surgery does not take that away.
But you said that one of your proudest moments has been being able to take the foods that you used to love eating when you were your bigger self and like morphing them into bariatric appropriate meals. Yeah. What would be one of your, I'm a massive foodie, so I genuinely just want to know, what would be one of your like favorite meals that you've morphed into a bariatric meal?
It's not, I mean, look, like nowadays I can eat rice and I can eat pasta and I can eat bread. Not a lot, but I can. But sort of in the early stages, certainly, if I wanted to make, a lot of keto foods really do fit the criteria for, trying to avoid the carbs. But like keto enchiladas, where you would get, I think I prefer the chicken than the beef, but like chicken enchilada, and I tend not to use like packet things. I make sauces and spices, from scratch sort of thing, and then rolling that up into like really thinly sliced zucchini, and putting it in a baking dish and then sauce and then cheese. And like that was when I went, oh my God, I can make yum food that is not only suitable for me to eat, but that will appease other people who haven't had weight loss surgery.
Yeah.
And certainly during the really big lockdown last year, there wasn't much else to do other than cook and bake. And I used to say I'm one banana bread away from a breakdown. I had a breakdown last year. But I got really into cooking and like I really enjoy it. Like I enjoy being like, I'm not a foodie in that I want to go to all these different cafes and try all these foods. Like I'm my own foodie. Like I like my food now. I will preference eating my food than going out for dinner.
Do you think it's like you take a certain amount of pride in creating it? Like it's almost like you're crafting it by yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm also really like critical. Like I'll be sitting down with my partner and he'll go, "Oh, this is yum," because he has to say that because I made it. But he'll go, "Do you like it?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and I'm like, and I'm really critical. I'm like, if I don't like it, then I don't like it. I'm like, I'm not making that one again. Like I'm filtering down the ones I really like and I'm writing them down. And I'm making my own cookbook. Not to sell or anything, just for me.
Yeah.
It's funny because I literally said that to somebody the other night. They were like, I said, oh, so Shan's got really good at just like if I put something in front of him, he'll be like, yeah, that tastes really good. But then like a day or two later, he'll be like, so the dinner that we had, probably don't put that on the menu again. I'll be like, thank you for making me feel good at the time, but I'll note that you didn't
my partner's not game enough to even say that like a year later. He just
no, but Shan's things.
Meal. Like I think there's like one meal where I was like, it was unedible. Like
what meal? Excuse me.
That was that one off TikTok. The TikTok one. What was that?
The cheese thing.
Oh, that was. Oh,
where you grate cheese and put onions in the sandwich press and it's meant to make it into a waffle?
No, it was a different one, but the Mac one, I think you made with my mum that time. What was that one? It was like a pasta. It was like a pesto pasta.
Oh, Shannon really didn't like the feta pesto thing.
Yeah,
the feta tomato
too much salt.
Thing.
Too much salt.
The second time I made it, you liked it better because I used a different feta and it was all fine.
Yeah.
But
was that like the where you bake it and then you mix it with the pasta and stuff and the cherry tomatoes? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've literally got the pasta sitting there to do it with, but I know because basically the dish is all pasta, I know it's going to be really hard for me to eat a lot of.
So I've made it a few times now, and Shannon didn't realise the other two times that I made it that it was that dish. So it was
the first time.
The first time because I used Australian feta, which is like extra salty, and then I salted the pasta whilst I cooked it, and then I put salt and pepper on top of it. We were just kind of like, that was like pure salt. That was delicious.
Yeah.
But Shannon's way of telling me that he doesn't like something is he'll be like, so we've been eating quite a bit of pasta lately. And I'll be like, okay, so like, tone down on the pasta.
You decide to get with an opinionated person, and that's me. I'm very like...
You also put in the rule that I cook and clean, so you eat whatever I put in front of you, buddy.
I do very much so. Sidetrack, you've lost half your body weight. Have you found like you look in the mirror now and you like what you see? Like how's the loose skin situation going? Like, is it something you're mentally getting over, or how do you feel about it?
I think the loose skin really bugged me for a really long time. I mean, look, it still bugs me, but remembering I've put some weight back on again, so it's probably not as prominent. But yeah, I hate it. Like I'll look in the mirror and I'll go, because you think after surgery that you're going to look like you did pre-surgery, like before pre-gaining weight.
When you're like 13 years old.
No, not necessarily, yeah, because I mean, for some people they've always been big, but for me, because I was thin and I had a really nice figure, I thought, I'm going to look like that again, but you don't. Like, I mean, gravity and stretchy and everything goes south, and you're just like, oh, and it wasn't so much just the look, but it was the weight of it, because with my loose skin, there's a lot of sort of fat cells adhered to the
Mine
the
too.
inside of it.
Yep.
And it's not really soft. You know, I've met a lot of other people who had weight loss surgery, and theirs is like, you know, soft and sort of floaty, and mine's like ba-doom, ba-doom, like every step I take. And when I started exercising and
How
doing
does it go?
PT,
Ba-doom,
like,
ba-doom.
ba-doom, ba-doom, it's like so painful. It's like I need to wear what do you call it when people compression? It's like I need to wear compression clothing. Yeah.
Spanx.
And it's I look at it and I'm just like, I wish you weren't there. And I actually went and got a quote from a plastic surgeon, and I was like, yeah, nah.
It's a house
like,
deposit.
I just can't. Yeah. Because and I needed like 4 separate surgeries, and I was just like, oh, I can't. And then if you were to pick just one, because maybe I could save up for one in 10 years. How do you pick just one?
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just got the big boobs. Wait, I'm just kidding.
Oh God, you're so horrible, Shannon.
Is that
that's actually probably the last one I would pick.
Oh, okay. Well, the butt lift. I don't know.
It's funny that you talk about that too, because I had somebody ask me a day or so ago, like, "Oh, how have you gone with loose skin?" And I have been really lucky. Like, I've said it a few times. Like, I have a bit of loose skin on my legs, and so when I run, in my mind, I think, "Oh my God, I don't have like those toned thighs that all those runners do." Like in my head, I know that I have skin flapping around everywhere, but nobody else is ever going to notice that. It's just in my mind. My arms clap for me. It was really
irritating.
But
no, mine aren't too bad, because I actually started weightlifting, and I don't mean just like weightlifting. Like I started powerlifting.
Yeah.
And I was at comp level last year when we went into lockdown, so that sort of shattered that dream.
Wow.
So I mean, the muscle in the arm has taken up some of the loose skin, sort of replaced that. But I could never, take those photos where I wanted to see the definition in my abs and in my quads and stuff, because there's just so much skin, and I'd have to like pull up and hold. And I'm like, I wish I didn't have to do this. But like, I mean, what can you do? There's nothing you can do unless
I'm pretty sure mine's still visceral fat as well across my stomach. Like I eventually, like it's skin, but women hold on to visceral fat a lot more than what men do. And so my stomach, it is all loose skin, but it is still fat cells in there as well. So it doesn't necessarily look like an apron hanging down. It's just I look like I have this like really small, like little gut. I hate like it is. Yeah. It's just like this little fat belly. And I don't think I can get it any smaller than what I got it to. It's just, it is what it is. But I'm not going to have plastics until after I've had babies, because, if I have a C-section, I might actually get it for free.
Isn't it funny though? Like, like when you were talking about like choosing which surgery you do, it made my mind go off on like a tangent.
I want my calves done.
But it's like going in to buy a new car, and you're like, do I get the tub liner or do I get the mag wheels? Like when you go like when you think of it in your own body, and you're like, do I get the tummy tuck and the boobs? Like that work.
Or do I get my arms and my...
Do I focus on my upper body or my lower body? Like it's your body. It's so it's kind of weird.
And it's more expensive than a hubcap.
So all or nothing.
Yeah, pimp my ride.
I'm so all or nothing. It's either like I'll get them all done or I get none of them done. I can't just get the one.
No, that's it. You just go like with one. You're like, well, guys, look here.
Just look at this one section.
Yeah. Oh, here, whatever it is.
And I mean, like I hide it very well. A lot of people say to me, oh, it doesn't even look like you have any at all. And then, if I get really close with them, or if I'm drinking, and I'm like, hey, you want to see my party trick? And they're like, wow, like you hide that really, really well. And I'm still self-conscious to the point where I won't wear, I rarely even wear bathers when I'm at the beach. Like I'll wear bathers, but I wear things over the top, because I feel like, how do I explain to people why my body looks the way it does? Not that it even matters, but my brain's like, I need to give you a reason why I look weird, why I look like my body's 80 and I'm not even 30 yet.
Yeah.
See, mine's not too saggy. It's just more like fatty, if that makes sense. So I've cottoned onto the fat.
Oh, mate, I take my shirt off and I look like an aged date.
Yeah, from the back.
Yeah. Literally, I have like a grandpa bum.
But my trick is that I buy a size up in the bottom half, because they're not quite high-waisted, but they're not quite like hipsters either. So you can kind of like, they're big enough that you can tuck all your loose skin into them. So I'll buy a size 12 in the bottoms, and I'll tuck everything into it that needs to be tucked into it, and it looks somewhat normal because otherwise, like I do have a pair of high-waisted bikini bottoms, which are my all-time favorite. But in summer, when you're wearing bikini bottoms every like second day, I can't wear the same pair every second day. So you got to come up with tips and tricks. So my tip is buy a pair one size larger and just tuck the crap out of it.
Okay. Wow.
It's not so much my tummy. Like I wear high-waisted everything all the time anyway, but it's the legs, and it inhibits me from wearing shorts, skirts, dresses, anything above the knee, which is where you can start to see the hang around my knee. I can't, like, I just, for me, that's just a limit. I'm okay with showing my arms now. There's a lot of tops I can't wear because of the boob situation, if you would even call it that anymore.
The
but
pancakes.
Yeah, like I wish I was more but I wish I was more confident, more so around the thigh area, because it just, you said you've looked on my Instagram and it's about the fashion. It's not even consciously about the fashion, but I really do like clothing and you know, having options, and I feel like it does limit my options, my fear of my legs.
See, I must admit, like I'm self-conscious about my legs, but it's only when I'm running, because obviously that repetitive movement and running obviously is going to make your skin jiggle around and stuff. But like normally I have a crease above my knee, which I know is the loose skin and everything, but it's not too bad. Like I've seen there's definitely people out there who have got it worse off than what I do. So I've people ask me all the time, do you want like skin removals? And where I'm at the moment, no, because A, I'm planning on having a baby, and B, it's not really affecting me, but I can 100% understand where people are coming from, where it actually, like I can wear shorts.
If it's affecting you, like I think that's the thing, is if it affects you mentally, you need to
do it. Yeah.
Feel happy. You need to be happy with who you are.
But that was my biggest goal leading into surgery, was to be able to wear a pair of short shorts. Like if my legs weren't how they were now.
Goal.
But it was. I wanted to wear a pair of short shorts because before surgery, I had never owned a pair of jeans and I had never owned a pair of shorts. I only lived in dresses and skirts. I just never, and I was 28 when I had my surgery, so I'd never worn a pair of jeans and never worn shorts.
Mine was to not have a heart attack and die, but you know, each to their own. So what would be your biggest tip for another bariatric patient?
Like someone who's thinking of getting it, or
like someone in the
early
early stages, or someone thinking about it?
For someone that's thinking about it, do your research. So I'm the person that if I'm going to do something, I'll have to research it a lot, and I did, and I even saw 3 different surgeons before I, landed on the one I was going to go with. So definitely do your research. Be prepared. Don't wing it. Do not wing this. This is too much of a big decision to wing.
It is.
And don't think that it's going to fix everything, because it doesn't fix the brain. It doesn't fix the thought patterns. It's merely, and people say it's a tool, and it is. That's all it is. And it can provide, a bit of a fresh start. If you see your old behaviours or patterns creeping back in, get support. Don't leave it, and don't be, no, I'm ashamed because I'm stuffing this up. Like, go get support, talk about it, and I think it's important, if you know that you've been eating to cope, or you're binge eating, or have been in a similar situation like me, you don't just see the psych the one time before you get your surgery, because sometimes you have to see one. Like, get regular, ongoing psych help. It doesn't make you any less of a person. If anything, it makes you more of a person, that you're able to be like, look, this behavior isn't serving me, and I need help with it. It mightn't just be eating; it might be other things as well. It might be the other end of the scale, where you start to restrict what you're eating, or it mightn't be food related at all. It doesn't matter. But definitely look after your brain, because you can't just look after your body and neglect this part.
Yeah, and also acknowledge those little things, because sometimes we can justify decisions we make and be like, oh, it's just, but it's like, you got to understand that certain actions are for a reason. Like what you were just saying then, if you're restricting your eating to a dangerous level, don't just be like, oh, but if I weightless surgery, I want to lose weight. Understand why it is that you are doing that. Why have you got that?
It's usually an attempt to regain control, because you feel out of control in other areas of your life.
100%. 100%. It comes in many different forms. So that's the thing. It's as much as you may restrict yourself, you may binge eat. There's all these different ways that you deal with certain situations in your life. And sometimes it's about just being like, oh, like I'm doing that because obviously I'm coping with something.
But you need to deal with that because you need to
'cause
figure
otherwise
out
it'll
what
just
it
be-
is.
To slow down enough to be like, this is like, to slow down enough and be like, okay, this is what I'm doing, and this might be why I'm doing what I'm doing, and this is what I need to do to help. But, you know, quite often you might be, you know, dealing with an issue and you don't even realize it. When I looked back on, you know how like with Snapchat, it restores your memories from, you know, and your stories on Instagram too, like from different times. When I look back at my lowest weight last year, when I look back on my lowest weight last year, I look, and I thought I looked great at the time, and I looked nearly dead. I looked like a skeletal, like I looked like I was off The Walking Dead, the show, and it was like, but at the time I thought I looked amazing. And when looking back, I'm like, that wasn't okay. And that was at a time where, you know, every time I ate, I had a panic attack. So I couldn't eat anymore because I thought every time I eat, I'm going to panic. And if I hadn't have come, you know, and sought help around that, where would I have been now?
Where would it have went? Yeah.
Well, talking about where would you have been now, where would you like to see yourself in 3 years' time?
Children.
Yep.
Still sort of continuing on the mental health journey, because that's sort of now, you know, first and foremost for me, because that sort of dictates every other area of my life. I'd still very much like to be weightlifting. It wouldn't bother me so much now if I didn't get back into powerlifting, but I certainly do like lifting. I want to be able to do more cardio-based things. Probably need to give up the smoking for that. But, you know, doing the 1,000 steps again when that opens up, and I'd love to do like a fun run or a marathon or something, maybe even a Tough Mudder one day, or like a Ninja Park type challenge situation thing. So they're more of the fitness goals. But yeah, one of my reasons for having weight loss surgery was to get pregnant. So I definitely want to start a family.
Because you've been with your partner for 10 years now?
Yeah.
So it's around you're ready to give that a go. And
Well, clearly you like him. You know, it's been 10 years.
It's
manageable.
maybe not so much like, but just more comfortable with.
That's it. He'll do.
Well, we wish you all the best on your future endeavours, and we'll keep an eye out for everything that you are up to in the next couple of years.
You've done very well, and you talk
You're very well spoken.
Yeah, and very open about everything you've gone through, and we're very grateful.
And for those of you who would like to reach out to Isabella, what is your handle, and where's the best place to reach you at?
So at Little Izzy Ruth and Instagram.
Instagram's where you're at.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool.
We'll tag you. We'll put your handle in the comments and everything. But it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for chatting with us.
That is another episode of Bari Banter. Why, yes, that is another episode of Bari Banter in the books. We hope you got a little something from that one.
Head on over to Facebook or Instagram and check us out, or go to baribanter.com where you can watch past episodes, give us feedback, and let us know who you want to hear from next.
We love you all, and as always, please stay beautiful.